to get one player from Ole Miss to Michigan, and that is, of course, Shea Patterson. And we'll talk about that as we go throughout the afternoon. Some new destinations for some South Carolina basketball players as well. We have updates on Kadeem Gay and Ibrahim Doumbia, where they will be playing basketball at least next season and the following years. 800-956-7266 is how you get in touch with us. Also, some interesting recruiting numbers out of Texas A&M to share with you as well. But we'll come back and talk about a man whose contract just ended with South Carolina, Ellis Johnson, and the impact he had on the Gamecocks as he now steps into a new pasture as well. Kerry Tharp also to come second hour. We'll talk NASCAR with the president of Darlington.
Are you saying they put him out to pasture?
I'm not saying that they put him out to pasture, but some interesting stuff about how he departed the program when we come back.
This is the place to talk Tigers, Gamecocks, and more. Sports talk across the state on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network on what will be a very busy weekend. Again, we just said no midweek for South Carolina and Clemson, but this, if there's ever a statement weekend for baseball in the state of South Carolina, you have number 4 Ole Miss coming to Founders Park to see the Gamecocks. And then you have Florida State coming to Clemson for a Saturday through Monday showcase. The Monday series will be on national TV, or Monday series finale will be on national TV, I should say. And really, this is kind of impression weekend, if you will, for both of these teams. South Carolina trying to prove that they belong, and Clemson Corn trying to prove that they are belonging in the upper half and possibly in those that not only could host a regional, but if they stay on that 8 line, possibly host a super regional as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think Monty Lee is facing some big moments in the weeks to come, because, I mean, they've been here before under him. He's done a great job, of course, in his first 2 years, and he won an ACC tournament championship in his very first year. He's hosted a regional in his first 2 years. He's not been able to get over that hump to get to the super regional. So if they host again, Clemson fans are going to expect a regional win, and if they stay on the 8 line, as you mentioned, then hosting a super regional. And the percentages say when you host a super regional, your chances of getting to Omaha are great. So there's going to be a lot of pressure on him and on the team. You got a lot of guys on this team who will be departing after this season. It's their last opportunity to get to Omaha while at Clemson. So there's going to be an inordinate amount of pressure because of the fact that they've been in that situation the previous 2 years and they did not deliver. And we'll see what happens. Like, Oklahoma State came through there a couple of years ago and just dominated. And let's see, who was it last year that came through Clemson and won that regional? Who was it? You remember?
Can't recall.
I have to look it up. But it was a disappointing time for Clemson to have that opportunity to host at home and both times not advancing. So Monty needs to take that next step. I mean, I know it's early in his tenure there, but you know how things are today. You don't get a whole heck of a lot of time before people start to grumble about, okay, well, we're good during the regular season, and we sure can't get it done in the postseason.
Vanderbilt, they went to
that's right.
They went to Corvallis and lost to Oregon State.
Yeah.
Well, if he has problems with his fans getting really antsy about not winning it, he can have a conversation with Mike Martin when he shows up. And he's been there, almost 40 years.
Well, at least he gets to Omaha.
And he gets to Omaha, and they, for whatever reason, Florida State is that one team. Florida State would be the one team, if I'm in Omaha, I'd be scared to play, because you would think their number will turn up at some point. And Mike Martin is, 73, 74 years old?
Pretty amazing.
Man.
That's one of the most amazing records in sport, the number of times that Florida State has gone to Omaha under Mike Martin and failed to win. You would just think accidentally he'd win one time.
But you're in agreement that it's not enough for Clemson to just kind of show up and be there. They need to actually put through.
Yeah, I think that I think Clemson's got to get to the super regional round this year. I mean, no, things aren't going to collapse around them. I'm just saying that
it's the last opportunity.
3 straight years of hosting and not getting past that stage is not going to sit well with the Clemson baseball fans.
Certainly so. We saw a very interesting feature from Josh Kendall in the state newspaper on the departure of Ellis Johnson from the South Carolina Gamecocks program. He had been serving as a defensive analyst for the Gamecocks over the last couple of years. He was also, of course, the South Carolina defensive coordinator for the better part of Steve Spurrier's tenure here. And obviously, when you think about what he had with South Carolina and the impact he'd had, this is a guy who'd been in college football for the better part of 3 to 4 decades. And, you know, he leaves behind a very impressive legacy, Corn.
When I think of Ellis Johnson, man, I think of pure football coach. I don't know what you think of. I think of pure football coach, especially on the defensive side. He's built his career around defense, though he's been, of course, head coach before, head coach in high school, head coach in college, both at the Citadel and at Southern Miss. You know, as things turned out for him, the decision to take that job at Southern Miss pretty much derailed his coaching career. Went down there after being a part of the rebuilding process under Steve Spurrier, wanted that opportunity to be a major college. He'd been the head coach at the Citadel. He wanted a chance to be that major college head coach. He took it at Southern Miss and went through one of the worst seasons a coach can go through. Winless and pointless almost. I mean, no offense, no quarterback. They were beat up at quarterback, et cetera, and was not given a chance by anybody there to try and turn it back around. So, then he left. He ends up at Alabama for a little bit, and then he comes to South Carolina and joined Muschamp's staff as an advisor, one of those off-the-field advisors. And I know, knowing Ellis, that he did his job, but he had to be like a caged animal because he believes his place is on the field and not in an office breaking down next week's opponent's offense to give to the other coaches to install. He wanted to be on the field. So he reached the point with his contract at South Carolina that it was up. And for whatever reason, I don't know if it was on his end or Will Muschamp's end, the decision was made that he would move on and they would bring in somebody else at some point in time to fill that analyst role.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like sometimes a coach, whether it's a head coach or an assistant coach, comes to a program at just the right time that they are needed and the best time for them. And that is, I think Ellis Johnson, correct me if I'm wrong, Corn, came to South Carolina under Spurrier just when suddenly all that football talent in that area that he was familiar with, Rock Hill on down, with Clowney and the rest of them, Stephon Gilmore, all were sitting there.
Yeah.
And he was the linchpin of recruiting a lot of those guys down to South Carolina.
That's the thing about Ellis. I mean, he was the package. Not only was he a great teacher on the field and coach, and a guy that made tremendous adjustments from the box, he was a very good recruiter because he made contacts. He had networks. He had people, having been in this state for as long as he had been, he had those connections to help him, even though he was an older coach. And a lot of times now you go with the younger coach to recruit these guys. He was an older guy, but he had the connections through the head coaches, through the grandfathers, through the parents. And, hey, he won South Carolina a bunch of big recruiting battles back in those days.
I'm not trying to insinuate anything nefarious here, but does this kind of have a shred of awkwardness, like an awkward departure? There really wasn't much said publicly about it. And I know that his contract basically was allowed to lapse. And I know that we wanted to ask Will about it, but he didn't spend much time in his spring press conference. I think he had some sort of recruiting event or something that he wanted to get to. I think that I don't want to say the man deserved better. Or again, if it's on his accord, he doesn't want to do it anymore. I understand. But to me, this seems like an awkward departure in my mind.
I don't know the backstory, so I'm not going to pretend to tell you what happened.
No.
I don't know. Tony Morrell from the Big Spur was the first one to report it going back several weeks ago that Ellis would not be coming back in that role or at all once his contract expired the end of April. So the backstory there, I don't know. I know Ellis still wants to coach on the field.
Right.
I mean, and I haven't talked to him. I'm just saying I know, in his heart, he still believes he can help somebody on the field, on the defensive side in some form or fashion. And in the article that Josh wrote, he even threw out going to Orlando and joining Spurrier in that league.
That was originally what I kind of thought might happen just because of the fact that, Steve is having a bit of a resurgence and kind of leading guys that way. And you almost wonder, in a similar way for players, that particular league is going to offer, again, a resurgent opportunity for coaches in that mold.
Well, the thing I think about Ellis is, you ever seen the guys that walk around and they really have an affinity for a game? They either carry around a chessboard or a checkerboard, some a deck of cards. If I'm not sure, the stories about Ellis always carrying a laptop with his defensive formations all the time and wanting to look up things, always looking to change things. I think Ellis is one of those coaches that's greatly addicted to the sport of football, and he'll help anybody because he can see things that other people can't see.
Stop me if you've heard this before. There's something shady going on in college football when it comes to recruiting.
Stop.
Slim Shady?
I'll explain when we come back on Sports Talk. Sports Talk brought to you by Founders Federal Credit Union. Head to foundersfcu.org where they can assist you with all of your financial needs. Founders Federal Credit Union, an official sponsor of Sports Talk and South Carolina Radio Network. Please tell me that you all saw the video of Dabo Sweeney pranking Dan Mullen at the Peach Bowl golf event. He forced Dan Mullen to hit an exploding golf ball. You know, one of those.
Again, he's done that before.
Well, no, he apparently had it done to him last year.
Yeah.
And he paid it forward, I guess, this year now with Dan Mullen. It was a funny little video.
Oh, yeah. Those guys get along great, and they raise a lot of money down there for the Chick-fil-A organizations that they give to. So it's a wonderful event. It's been going on for many, many years. I guess Spurrier's not in it this year?
I guess not.
Did South Carolina have a rep?
I do not believe so. I only got the one from Clemson.
I think it would be the first time. And since they started it, that there's been no South Carolina rep, I think. Usually it's been Spurrier and Sterling Sharp. And even
is Muschamp not golf? Is that what it is?
Well, golf isn't a verb; it's a game. You know,
does
plays golf?
Does Will Muschamp play golf? Corn?
I don't know.
Golf.
I don't know him well enough to know if he plays golf. I don't know his.
I mean, is that why the South Carolina media outing is no longer a thing? Is that a thing?
That would be one reason, I guess. You know,
golf is a meal, not a day.
Oh no, that's not correct.
Oh, that was the
Thanksgiving.
I'm not sure I'd want to be on a golf course with Muschamp, to be honest with you. I mean, with his famous temper, I mean, a couple of slices into the woods, no telling what would happen to that golf club.
I'm sure Muschamp, after a couple of cold ones, he mixed it up with you. He relaxes.
Okay.
Do you think
you say so?
I think he'd relax. I think he would relax. I'm not relaxed about this story. This story has me just completely, it has my skin. First of all, the University of Michigan football team is not even in the country right now. They're in Paris, right? They're doing this international tour, which, according to the college football or college basketball, you're only allowed to do one of these tours once every 5 years, basically, once a class, so to speak, so that they all get an opportunity to go overseas. Football didn't have that kind of rule.
Can I ask you one quick question before you continue? If South Carolina or Virginia Tech did the same thing, would ESPN send a crew?
Probably not.
With them to Paris?
Probably not. But Marty Smith is tailing your boy Jim Harbaugh in Paris. And, oh, by the way, they have Shea Patterson with him, who, by the way, just got himself cleared by the NCAA from a directive or a change of the rules that literally came about when, Corn? Last Wednesday. They changed this rule last Wednesday. And according to the modification, a player can transfer without restriction, granted that there are documented mitigating circumstances outside the student-athlete's control.
Well,
how catered to them does that sound?
There's been many student-athletes
with
mitigating using that phrase.
Yes.
There have been many college athletes who have had mitigating circumstances lead to their transfer who did not have the benefit of that. It shows you how the NCAA selectively thinks. Again, I have no doubt if that guy was transferring to South Carolina,
wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen.
You sit out 2 years.
And then I go back to what happened with Florida this past year with the Notre Dame quarterback transferring.
Play right away.
And Florida should not have been able to, according to the SEC rules, should not have been able to take him because they changed the rules.
Because he was only a 1 year transfer, right? They don't take 1 year transfers.
No, it was because Florida, the rule was if you take transfers, then they must graduate. If you take grad transfers, they must graduate or you lose the right to take another one.
Gotcha.
And so Florida had some grad transfers who apparently did not graduate and should not have been able to take another grad transfer. But of course, the rule was redone to fit their needs. Why? Because Florida needed a quarterback. How did it work out for them?
I mean, they're still looking for a quarterback.
Yes. Not too damn well.
I mean, this to me is just like, you know, Jim Harbaugh must have some pictures of Mark Emmert.
It's crazy.
What's the deal?
It's crazy.
How is not anybody else throwing rancor over this decision? This is so dumb.
I mean, on the one hand, you got people who are celebrating this decision because they say this is a win for the athlete and they should be allowed to make the move. In particular, in this case, because you had a change, you had a program go on probation at Ole Miss, you had the change in the coaches and all that kind of stuff, and it affected this kid's opportunity to play in postseason play and also maybe to play in the type of offense for which he was recruited. And thus it's no longer a good fit for him, and he feels like he should be able to transfer without penalty.
And wasn't his red shirt pulled off with only about 3 games to go?
I think so, because the starter ahead of him got hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Chad Kelly got hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, but again, I don't think that this is in the spirit of the rule. Again, I think that this literally is just done for this one circumstance, and I don't like the Pandora's box that this opens up, because mitigating circumstances,
there really is no Pandora's box, because the NCAA rules on these cases independently. And if they like you or they can help you, if you're one of those schools, they're going to rule in your favor. But if you're down the totem pole,
that's right,
you're going to get ruled against. I mean, just history says that.
I mean, let's take a perfunctory example. And again, it wouldn't work because it's in the same conference. But let's just say South Carolina wanted to get Jalen Hurts. Let's just say they wanted to get Jalen Hurts this offseason because Jalen didn't want to play, and Tua Tagovailoa has done all he's done and all this stuff, and there are mitigating circumstances involving Hurts eligibility.
It's called his dad.
Would he be able to play right away? Absolutely not.
No.
Not even close.
No.
So, like, I don't understand what makes Michigan so special. And I understand that they're put on probation, that there was an extra year added to their bowl ban. You know, tough. Yeah. That's all I have to say.
Well, this is what drives pundits and fans crazy. If your team is not, of course, benefiting from a decision by the NCAA, is that there is no consistency. There's no across-the-board policy here. Okay, if you're going to make that the rule, then it should be across the board, and any athlete who runs into a similar situation to be given the same result.
Let's face it.
There's precedent. There's precedent here.
Let's pick a big school in size that he probably wouldn't have gotten a waiver. Yeah, well, where are you going, Shay? I'm going to Iowa. No.
Yeah.
But because it's Michigan.
I don't like to play conspiracy theorist, but there's just too many examples of this kind of crap that happens with the NCAA. And it's really, it's really time for the NCAA to be disbanded, the organization, and a new, true professional organization. I don't know what you would call it and how you would fund it or man it up or woman it up, whatever the case may be.
Well, you need an independent commissioner is what you need.
You need an organization that is
an oversight committee.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you need an organization that is unbiased and
independent
and not tied. I mean, the decisions, of course, are made by the various committees of the NCAA, made up of people from the schools, and they all have their biases. They all have their me first attitude. You need somebody to rise above and say, well, they had that. A guy named Walter Byers. I mean, when he was the dictator of college sports, of course, I was too young to recall some of the things that he did back then, but it certainly seemed like it was run on a more even keel than it is now. Maybe he had his fair-headed children as well under his wing as he was making decisions around the NCAA. But he ruled with an iron fist, and when he made a decision, that was it. There was no discussion about it.
What's scary with me?
Not sure if that's a good way to do it or not.
Yeah, when you're going with conspiracy theories, you have to follow the money. I'm not so gullible that I don't think that Fox picks up the phone. Look, we have the Big Ten contract. We need Michigan to be good. Ohio State needs a foil. Shea Patterson.
They've got one. It's called Clemson.
Yeah, well, yeah, but they're not in the same conference. We need Michigan to be good. We need Harbaugh to be good. Let Shea Patterson in. Let him in.
I mean, they went 8-5 last year and lost in the Outback Bowl to South Carolina. If that's a foil, I don't want that covering my food.
Michigan is an average football program.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
They're an average football program.
So what makes them so damn special?
Well, because they've got 100 and some odd years of greatness.
And they're tied on.
I don't care if Bo Schembechler will come out here and stab me blind, but I'm sorry, they don't deserve special treatment.
They got it.
Recruiting next, and also the new destinations for some former South Carolina basketball players when we come back on Sports Talk.
These guys, they never sleep. Check them out on the web at SportsTalkSC.com. Now, more of Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network.
Welcome back to Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. Some faces in new places with South Carolina perspective from the basketball sense. Remember Kadeem Gay and Ibrahim Famuke Doumbia both transferring away. We've now found out where they will be next year. Kadeem Gay going from USC to Akron, and Ibrahim Doumbia will now play at Central Florida. Also, David Beatty is choosing between 3 different schools as well. He's choosing between LaSalle and Seton Hall, as well as one other school as well. Temple is the last one. Yeah. So he's looking possibly in that Philadelphia, New Jersey area. So interesting to see how that will play itself out. But some Gamecock faces in new places. A lot of recruiting to get to today, Corn, including a player from South Carolina's prospective recruiting class that is going to have to go to JUCO at least for a year, possibly more.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just a moment. Let's start at the beginning. How about that, huh? Good place to stop.
Possibly.
Stop and start.
Stop and start.
Quarterback Ryan Helinski from Orange, California, USC commitments back on April 4th. Other schools, however, see, we talked about this last night. You know, basketball coaches back off. College football coaches just put the pedal to the metal. Helinski made it clear that he's 110% committed to USC, yet LSU was out in California, out his way for their first day on the road yesterday, and they offered him, and that's his 4th SEC offer, USC, Georgia, Ole Miss, the others. And he told us last night, quote, "I am committed to South Carolina right now. Like I said, 110%. If something happens that affects my commitment in the future, then we shall see when that time comes."
Well, what can happen?
Coaching changes. Who knows? He received that offer from LSU while they were on the road for spring evaluation. He has taken his official to USC. He said at the moment he does not believe he will take others. He does not yet have a return trip planned for USC this past weekend. He was named a co-MVP of the Best of the West 7-on-7 tournament. Linebacker Lakia Henry, Dodge City Junior College, Kansas, remains a prime target for USC. Regular contact with Will Muschamp and linebackers coach Coleman Hutzler. The Gamecocks have been out to see him this spring. He plans to check them out with an unofficial visit this summer when he's back home in Vidalia, Georgia. That date has not been set. He says he does talk to South Carolina a lot, and the idea that they're close to home and his mom can get over to see him play is a positive for South Carolina. He is going to visit Tennessee unofficial May 11th, Ole Miss unofficial May 19th. Oregon, Arizona, Utah State, and Houston have also been out to see him. His lead group right now is USC, Tennessee, Alabama, Texas A&M, Texas, Nebraska, Ole Miss, and Louisville. He'll not take his official visits until later in the year. Defensive end Ruke Ororo, 6'5", 250, out of River Ridge, Michigan. Been kind of an under-the-radar prospect, even off the radar, but now he's definitely on the radar because he's picked up offers from Clemson, Michigan, Northwestern, Minnesota, Indiana, and Iowa. He called the Clemson offer big. He calls Clemson one of his dream schools since he was very young. And he said that Venables doesn't usually recruit guys up his way, so it's makes him feel good that they're coming after him. They've told him he's an excellent pass rusher, would fit in well with their defense. He plans to visit Clemson within the next few weeks for his first look at the program, football and academics. And he said his plan right now is to commit sometime before July. Michigan, Purdue, Indiana, Oregon, Syracuse, and Clemson, he said, are his top schools right now. USC today offered defensive back DJ Daniel of Georgia Military Junior College. He also has offers from East Carolina, Georgia State, Louisiana Lafayette, and South Alabama. According to his coach, Fort Dorchester wide receiver Justin Williams plans to enroll at Northwest Mississippi Junior College. USC is placing him there with plans on taking him back should he be successful in the classroom and on the field. Don't forget, there's a defensive lineman at Northwest Mississippi out of Fort Dorchester who's in kind of the same situation with USC, and if things go well for him, he hopes to also sign with South Carolina after he finishes at the junior college. Offensive lineman Xavier Truss told Rivals at its camp on Sunday he has Penn State, Georgia, and Michigan as his top three, with Clemson, Auburn, and Ohio State on his short list. USC target defensive lineman Ben Smiley was offered by Alabama. Clemson in the top 8 with defensive lineman Josh Harris of Roxborough, North Carolina, with Penn State, North Carolina, Ohio State, Virginia Tech, Georgia, Tennessee, and NC State. USC offered 2020 receiver Marquez Bell, Lake City, Florida. Clemson in the final 5 with defensive end Enos DeCosmo with Notre Dame, Stanford, Michigan, Northwestern. Clemson on the finalist list with running back Jerrion Ely with Georgia, Michigan, Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas, Southern Cal. Duke offered 2019 6'6" point guard Josiah James of Portugal. That's not good news for the people of South Carolina. He also was offered by Michigan State over the weekend. He's a major USC and Clemson target. Never like it when Duke gets involved.
That's usually curtains.
USC recruiter Mike Peterson was in yesterday to check on offensive lineman Keandre Jones of Callaway, Georgia. Defensive end Justin Ibobe of Forest Park, Georgia, reduced his list to Clemson, Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and Auburn. Linebacker Drake Thomas of Wake Forest, North Carolina, released a top 8. Clemson, Virginia Tech, Tennessee, Ole Miss, NC State, West Virginia, Alabama, and Charlotte. And 6'9" DJ Burns of York Prep was offered by Houston. Recently took an official visit to Tennessee. Called it a great campus, great people, likes the system. He says a good place for a college experience. He is scheduled for an official visit to USC this weekend. There you go, recruiting here on Sports Talk. We invite you to check it out around the clock, 365, 366 in leap years. Our website, SportsTalkSC.com. On Twitter, use the hashtag. For those of you not familiar with that, that's the number symbol on your keyboard. Hashtag ST. It took me a while to figure that out. Hashtag ST recruiting.
I was saving this for later, but it relates to recruiting. And since you finished early, I want to bring it your way. So 24/7 Sports put out a composite on all the, I guess I know how much you love star rankings, the 5-star prospects in the 2017 or 2018 NFL draft.
I think there were 7 in the first round.
7 in the first round. There were 18 undrafted players. 18 5-star guys out of high school that went undrafted. What does that tell you?
I mean, now let me think about this. 18
players
that were not drafted, who were not drafted at all, who were 5-star recruits.
Yes.
And 7, see, I was looking at it this way. I was trying to determine in the court of public opinion, 32 first-round picks, 7 of them were 5-star recruits. Is that a good percentage? That's roughly a little over a quarter.
There were 20 of them.
A little less than a quarter.
There were 20 of them drafted overall throughout all 7 rounds. And there were 18 that went undrafted. So about half.
Yeah. Well,
drafted.
Keep in mind, the people who evaluate, they're going to tell you, well, we're not evaluating them on their pro prospects. We're evaluating them on where they are in high school and how we project them to play in college.
But again, these are places that have very good programs like Georgia, LSU, Florida State, Texas A&M. I mean, these are not schleps here.
Well, see, that's why it's hard for me to.
I'm hearing something.
It's hard for me to believe how things can work out for a kid as far as trying to judge what he looks like even in high school. Because let's face it, suppose he's a great athlete in a week high school league.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's one of those kids that matured early, but now he's going to go on the downside once he gets out of college, where you see a guy who may have been a 2 or 3 star, and then suddenly he said, whoa, look at this guy now.
Top of the hour we come. We will do our review of spring football. We start with Tennessee next.